last week. We dropped her off at school, close to school. She wanted to walk the rest of the way.
But in that same interview, then said,
I was the one who took her to school in the morning. That was my partner.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear the thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most scientific voice in true crime. In this analysis, we're going to deal with the tools of a predator's trade. Perhaps the most important document in the tranche of over 900 pages is the one that isn't there, and the one that authorities say they won't release, the autopsy report. Now, one would expect to find, I believe, traces of sedatives in Madeline's system, given the clear pattern that repeats itself over and over. If you study some of the excerpts from the supplemental police reports, you see repeated over and over again. Madeline was asleep when essays occurred. Madeline appears to be sleeping, appears to be sleeping, appears to be sleeping. The sedation also leads one to believe the crime happened inside the home, not outside. We get some intertextuality in a case all the way across the pond in Australia, where we do have access to the toxicology. An excerpt from an article dealing with the death of Charlize Mutton reads as follows. A forensic toxicologist told the court that Charlize had consumed a toxic dosage of the medication, no idea how to pronounce it, quetiapine, at least 6 hours before her death. So that was very much part of the circumstances in terms of her death. They said that that drug, which is actually used to treat schizophrenia, had actually been prescribed to Stein, the person convicted of her death. Quite weird how his surname is Stein and the person in this case with Madeline SOTO is Stearns, right? And so they said that this drug had been prescribed to treat Stein's schizophrenia, but that this drug would cause a child to experience profound sedation.
What more than that?
Well, before we get to that, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. Welcome to the couple of hundred of you who have subscribed following the publication of the last video. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, please like, share, leave a comment. Since these videos are typically demonetized just dealing with the Madeline SOTO case, please do consider hitting the thanks button. And let's get started now. I do want to make it absolutely clear, when I'm talking about the tools of the trade, the important thing is that mothers out there, sisters out there, people who caretakers out there, keep your eyes open for these tools of the trade. This is part of the toolbox, it appears, of some of these people. Look out for things like medications that are being used excessively. You might find pills next to somebody's bed. That might be an indication that something's taking place. Obviously, it's also things like a phone. Try and, if you're living with somebody, try and have a look at what's going on their phone. If they are not doing anything wrong, there shouldn't be anything wrong with it. How much are they on their phone, but also what is on their phone? Now, again, besides sedatives, also besides the perp's phone, there's also the vehicle. And by the way, in the Charlize Mutton case, there was also a vehicle that drove an extensive distance. In Madeline SOTO's case, it's a 2010 Lincoln MKZ. But these were basically the three key ingredients facilitating, leading into, and providing an exit from the crime, right? Besides all these, it was also Madeline's mother clearly wasn't much of an obstacle to what was going on either. So any person who's vigilant, who has their child in their custody is going to make it harder. By giving someone you don't know a lot of unsupervised access is just really looking for trouble. So besides sedatives, besides the perp's phone and his vehicle, you standing in the way of access is perhaps the best counter to what is happening here. Now, I heard, I can't say whether it's true, that Jen's family knew about Stefan, and you would imagine they would, given the period of time we're talking about, something like 5 years, that he was, certainly that Madeline was exposed to him and, was vulnerable to this person. 5 years, and as far as I understand, Jen's family didn't approve of him, and perhaps that is why Jen was trying to keep it secret, that she'd kind of unthinkingly, obviously not thinking critically, recklessly, allowed him back into their lives. What could go wrong? Well, a lot went wrong. Now, I suspect, and this is just a hunch, there's certainly not too much evidence that I could find dealing with this, but I believe if sedatives were used, other drugs were being used as well. Now, in the Charlize Mutton case, it was other prescription medications that then led to them being essentially abused. In this case, I think that there possibly other drugs that were being used as well, and possibly not only by Stefan, but perhaps the little girl's mother as well. Now, that's entirely speculation. I can't prove it. It just seems, it might explain why Jen couldn't leave Stefan, that she was kind of dependent on him in some way, that she was perhaps compromised, that her judgment was impaired in some additional way. And she says that she had anxiety. She says that she was tired. But one wonders whether there was something else taking place. The drug narrative is really the only explanation, as far as I'm concerned, for how and why someone would allow her daughter to be in such vulnerable circumstances for such a long period of time, off and on for 5 years, since the girl was 8 years old. Incidentally, I think we have a similar fabric in the Casey Anthony case. I've written 2 books on that case. And so sedatives against the background of other drugs. And the drug narrative is often very cloak and dagger. It's very under wraps. It's very secret. And the fact that you had the imputed perpetrator in the Casey Anthony case being Xanny, which is a kind of code word for Xanax, I think speaks to that aspect taking place anyway. Does that make sense? Now, in terms of the timeline, a video time stamped at 7:35 a.m. showed Stefan Stearns discarding items in a trash compactor at his apartment. The items include a tire. Now, why do you think he was getting rid of a tire? He was also getting rid of a white trash bag containing SOTO's backpack. Why was he getting rid of that? Well, if she went to school and if something happened at school, that's the narrative he was trying to suggest, trying to kind of manipulate into the whole thing, then her backpack needs to disappear. Otherwise, it's going to show that she didn't go to school. And of course, she didn't go to school. So get rid of the backpack. And then there was also a purple Hawaiian shirt and white Crocs, possibly clothing that was worn at the last sort of time. Also, the white Crocs, probably what Madeline was said to be wearing when she disappeared. Again, why the tire? Perhaps the tire was placed over the other items and was meant to cover or shield the other items from view when crushed. Now, again, in the Charlize Mutton case, I think her remains were covered by like a pile of sticks or something like that. Now, surveillance footage showed SOTO in the front seat of a vehicle, the little girl with her head slumped over, while Stearns entered a gated complex around 8:19 a.m. Again, that's very brazen behavior, to have someone who's actually deceased and you can actually see them in the front seat of the vehicle through the window, and that's exactly what happened. At 8:31 a.m., Stearns was seen leaving through the rear gate as the girl's body was now completely slumped over. Stearns drove around for several hours with SOTO's body in the car. Guess what? The perpetrator in the Charlize Mutton case did the same. Also drove around for very long distance, except I think her body was believed to be in the back area of the pickup truck. What this shows, certainly with Stearns, is not only a brazen character, but a careless and not terribly intelligent individual. And I do think there's a link between brazenness, carelessness, recklessness, and the impulsivity that results from taking recreational drugs and also taking them excessively. According to Fox 35, quote, inside the car, deputies uncovered items such as latex gloves, cloth gloves, a knife, a towel, a rag, and a blanket. Some similar items found in Casey Anthony's car and related in a certain context to the Idaho 4 prime suspect. Similar scenarios going on there. Now, other items such as a white rope, a trash bag, and a white towel were found in the vehicle's trunk. On the same day, Orange County detectives, this again according to Fox 35, collected evidence, including a bottle of, I'm not actually going to say what it is, but certain kind of cream, boxes from the laundry, a pink strawberry Snuggie, a purple comforter, basically all the sort of items that would be associated really with a bed and blankets and people in a bed. This is really the laundry side of covering up the evidence, getting it washed and cleaned. Also, underwear and, very important, a phone tripod from a residence. Now, the document didn't reveal which home the evidence was collected from. And so, yeah, all of these are tools of the trade. Surveillance video from a Holiday Inn in Orlando. Now, I've been to Orlando and I've been to Kissimmee. They're not that far from one another. But Stearns, it's about maybe 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes drive, showed Stearns in a parking garage opening the passenger door of the car and then carrying what appeared to be a limp body to the trunk of the vehicle. So it does seem like they've got a long track with video footage of this crime taking place, the timeline. And so what did he do? He was transferring her from the front of the truck to the trunk, and then the vehicle, the Lincoln, and from there went to a disposal site. And I think he explained that he was stopped wherever he was because he was changing a tire. And of course, we know he disposed of a tire, but I think he was doing something else. And so tucked behind a line of bamboo trees, law enforcement officials found what appeared to be a lifeless body covered by hay and articles of clothing and surrounded by flies. So intertextually, you have the same sort of situation. A hasty burial using hay, in this case, sticks in the other case in Australia. Now, in our next analysis, I want to compare this Madeline in Florida to the Madeline in Portugal and examine in which areas there are similarities and in which areas the cases are different. Obviously, they've got the same name, right? Just spelled differently. So if sedatives are used on children, do you think in these respective cases, specifically Madeline in Florida and Madeline in Portugal, do you think it's in order to take them somewhere, or do you think it's the opposite, to keep them where they are and under a form of remote control? I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you for listening. I'll be putting up another video on the John Benet Ramsey case, John and Paula Woodward's comments at CrimeCon, so look out for that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.